against what actually happened. Basically, we want to see if we overspent, if we're efficient, or if we saved. Alright, so I'm going to illustrate an example here. Now, I want you to notice these 2 points I've written here. Usually with variances, if we are using the formula, if you start with the actual and subtract it from the standard, then any negative value you get is favorable. Any positive value is adverse. But if you start with the standard minus the actual, then any positive value is favorable, any negative value is adverse. So since we usually connect negativity, anything negative to be bad and anything positive to be good, so I'll use this. Okay. Alright, so here we have a standard cost card. These are the costs that we incur when we're producing each unit of the product we make. Alright, you've got your direct materials, your direct wages, your variable overheads. Alright, these are the costs you incur when you're producing each unit. We've got our standard contribution. So standard equated to expected. This is our expected contribution. Standard selling price, this is our expected selling price. And our budgeted output for the month of June 2022 was 5,100 units. Now we've got information for the actual results of June 2022. Production, we produced 4,800 units and sold them for 150,000. Materials consumed in production amounted to 2,500 kgs at a total cost of 10,000. Labor hours paid for amounted to 8,500 hours at a cost of 67,800. Actual labor hours worked amounted to 8,000 hours, and our variable overheads amounted to 2,600. So first we're going to start with the material variances. Okay, so when you're dealing with the material variances, this is what you should remember. You'll be given the standard rate. Okay, so this is our standard rate for materials. Alright, this is for the price variance. PV, the price variance. This 0.5 kilos for each unit. This is our standard usage. So this will be used for the usage variance. And the total direct material cost, this one here, will be used for the total material cost variance. Right? So the one in red, price variance, the one in yellow, usage variance, and this other one in yellow, this is going to be for the cost variance. So let's start with our material price variance. Basically, we're asking, did we spend more or less when buying our materials? Alright, so this is what we're comparing. How much did we expect to spend on raw materials for actual production? Okay, how much we intended to spend on raw materials for actual production. This is how much did we spend on raw materials for the actual production. Okay, so these two questions can be put in this formula here. The standard rate minus the actual rate multiplied by the quantity. We multiply the standard rate with the actual quantity. It's telling us how much we expected to spend on raw materials for our production. When we multiply the actual rate by the actual quantity, then we're finding out how much we actually spent on the raw materials. Okay, so first things first, you need to get our actual rate. Our standard rate, as I said, has been given to us. Okay, so here the standard rate is 2 kwacha per kilo. Now, in our question, we've been told we bought 2,500 kilos at a cost of 10,000 kwacha. So I want to find out what is our actual rate for materials. Okay, so we're going to say 10,000 divided by 2,500. You get 4 kwacha per kilo. Okay, this is how much we actually paid per kilogram. Alright, so if you ask how much do we expect to spend on raw materials, okay, with our standard rate we expected to pay 2 kwacha per kilo, and with the 2,500 units we produced, the 2,500 kg that we used, we spent, what we expected to spend was 5,000 kwacha. Okay, this is what we expected or planned to spend. But how much we actually spent is already given in the question, so you don't really need to tabulate. We actually spent 10,000 kwacha. So we overspent. Okay, 5,000 minus 10,000, that is negative 5,000, telling us we've overspent by 5,000 kwacha on raw materials. Okay, if we use the formula, same thing, your standard rate, which was 2 kwacha, minus our actual rate, which was 4 kwacha, multiplied by the actual quantity, 2,500. Okay, when you do your multiplication, negative 2 times 2,500, you get negative 5,000. As I said, when it's standard minus actual, okay, negative is bad, adverse. Okay, positive is good. So now we're going to our material usage variance. So here now we're focusing on how well did we utilize our materials. Okay, did we use more or did we use less? Okay, so as you can see, what we're comparing, how much material did we expect to use for actual production, which is basically our standard quantity, and how much material did we use. Okay, so we can get our standard quantity, okay, or the standard, basically how much we planned to use. Okay, so basically it's the standard usage per unit multiplied by the number of units produced. Okay, so if you remember in our cost card, our standard usage is 0.5 kilos. Okay, and we produced 4,800 units. Okay, so 0.5 multiplied by 4,800 units, 2,400. Okay. So this is what we expected. This is how much raw materials we expected to use, 2,400 kg. For the 4,100, for these 4,800 units we produced, we expected to use 2,400 kg. But in our question here, it tells us that we used materials which amounted to 2,500 kgs. Okay, so we used more than we planned for, expected. Okay, so here, how much material did we use? It's already been given to us, 2,500. Okay, so 2,400 minus 2,500, negative 100. So we used 100 more kg than we planned to use. Alright, then we multiply this by the standard rate of materials. Okay, why I'm multiplying by the standard rate is because this is an efficiency ratio, so we don't want price changes to affect our answer. So that's why we're going to use a standard to actually see if we used more or less. So 2 kwacha per kilo times 100, we get negative 200 kwacha. So it's like we overspent a 200 kwacha for the 100 kwacha, the 100 kg we used, which was over our budget. Okay, so as I said, the formula can also be written here: standard quantity minus actual quantity multiplied by the standard rate for the materials. The standard quantity, we expected to use 2,400. We actually used 2,500. So multiply that by 24 minus 25, multiply by 2, you get negative 200. So what is just basically telling us that we overspent. Then finally we're going to the total material cost variance. We want to find out, okay, how much did we expect to pay in total for our materials versus how much we actually paid in total. Okay, so for our material cost variance, alright, we can use the direct materials cost per unit. Okay, so we find out, okay, with our planned budget of the number of units which we produce, this 4,800 units, how much were we expecting to pay? Okay, here in our question we've been told what we actually paid. This was the total cost of materials, 10,000. Okay, so what we actually paid was 10,000 here. Alright, what we actually paid. Then what we expected to pay in total for materials for actual production. You can either say number of units produced multiplied by the direct material cost per unit. Okay, we produced 4,800 units, and the direct material cost per unit is 1 kwacha per unit. So 4,800 times 1 kwacha, we expected to pay 4,800 kwacha for direct materials. That's what we expected to pay. But in actuality, we paid 10,000. So 4,800 minus 10,000, you get negative 5,200. So we overspent by 5,200 in total for our direct materials. The other way we could get the standard total cost or the expected total cost, we would have just said our standard quantity, how much material we used, multiplied by the standard price of materials. Alright, we used 2,400 kg, and the standard price for materials 2 kwacha per kg. When you multiply these two, you still end up with 4,800. So you can use either of the two.